Everyone knows that we, audiophiles, like turntables because they are expensive and inconvenient. We are just waiting for something to start hum or when it starts to seem that the left channel is playing louder than the right. Only then can we get all our cool stuff off the rescue box. 10 types of alignment protractors, acrylic vitiating plates, an expensive bubble level that costs like a phone, scales that can accurately measure the weight of your hair and start our magical dance, which after 2 days of being on the verge of despair will finally lead us to calmness in the sweet spot. And then we, despite the nervous tics received during this process, relax, feeling how incomparable the sound of the magic vinyl disc is. Oh yeah, everything wasn't in vain, and the drugs will cure the nervous tic received in that process. And you know what? You won't get all that with this player. Music Hall mmf-9.3 is a pre-top turntable from an American company, a very sophisticated, pretty cool gadget. Moreover, we have two different versions here, in black lacquer and in walnut finish. But apart from the color, the turntables differ in the cartridges included. The black one is equipped with a Goldring Eroica LX and the walnut one with Orthophone Quintet Black S. I also have a Quintet Black S in my home system and I am particularly interested in comparing the sound. But let's start from the beginning. Music Hall is a rather intriguing company. It has founded by Roy Hall in 1985. So we may say that this was the worst time to start such a business, because as we know, the days of the CD were upcoming. And Roy Hall for some reason decided to start making turntables. Even looking from the 21st century, everything shrinks in me when I think about what a failure this idea was in those days. This was supposed to become an epic fail and go down in history as another example of how not to do business. But as time has told, Roy made the right decision, and having miraculously survived the analog apocalypse, Music Hall have been making turntables for 37 years by now. Super popular turntables. And there are some curious details in this story. Their players are manufactured at a factory in the Czech Republic, at the facilities of another company project. However, this is not beige engineering. Music Hall has its own philosophy and unique design. Let's discuss it now. We know Music Hall as a manufacturer of inexpensive, convenient and simple Melomaniacs turntables. But nevertheless, they do something more advanced, aimed to the owners of expensive audio systems. We call them audiophiles. The main idea of the Music Hall turntables of the upper lines is the vibration isolation of the key elements of the player by means of separate plinths. In our case, these are 3 plinths, they are all made of MDF, and each of them is separated using sorbitane spacers. Sorbitane is an ideal polymer for dampening vibrations. It's widely used not only in audio equipment, but also in medical equipment and even in the aerospace industry. So, in our player there are 3 plinths. The bottom one is a support one. It's the first stage absorbing the vibrations from the supporting surface. It has 3 adjustable cone feet. By the way, we don't often see turntables standing on cones. The middle plinth has a gorgeous inverted ceramic main bearing. This is one of the most important components of any turntable. Its quality directly affects how the player sounds, because the platter rests on it. Here it is made of thick acrylic chunk, another great material for a turntable, because it almost doesn't transmit vibrations that can come from the main bearing, because the metal and ceramics from which the bearing is and spindle are made of are capable of transmitting them. Thus, the acrylic disc is a guarantee that this part of the structure won't spoil the sound. The upper plinth carries the tone arm, and as you can see, these turntables have 9-inch tone arms, very similar to the ones the project makes. So it is. However, as far as I understand, these are not exactly the tone arms that can be found on the project website, because these are made specifically for the music hall and there may be some differences. But what we know for a fact is that this is a 9-inch tone arm, its arm tube is a single carbon part, it's cone-shaped to effectively avoid standing wave reflections, there is high-purity copper wiring inside of it, and inverted ABEX 7 class Swiss bearings in the rotating parts. The tone arm allows you to adjust the VTA and azimuth, but you probably won't need these skills because the turntables come fully adjusted from the factory. You won't need to adjust anything, just take it out of the box, connect the cables and go ahead. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In addition, the player's motor is a completely separate element, connected to the player only with a belt. It's simply placed sideways, for which all 3 plinths have a cutout in the front left corner. The motor has its own anti-vibration puck, and there is a single button for switching on and off and changing speeds, 33 and 45 on the top. And unlike their simpler models, the rotation isn't transferred to the small subdisc, but the belt wraps around this large and heavy acrylic platter from the outside. Personally, I like it much more than a design with subdiscs under the platters. As a result, we have an arrangement with a completely isolated motor, and all the key elements are on their separate layers without a rigid connection between each other. The main plinth is decoupled from the main bearing and platter, and those in due course are decoupled from the tone arm. Pretty smart and efficient, but not in terms of dust control between those plinths. What else? There is a built-in bubble level that allows you to ensure that your player is always in a horizontal position. The turntables come with a cheap phono cable, you should replace it immediately, which is connected via RCA outs fixed in a shielded case right under the bottom plinth. They are connected to the tone arm only through a cable that runs freely through all the floors of the turntable. It also comes with a transparent acrylic lid, which isn't often found in turntables of such a high level these days. But with such a layered design, they would offer a large hood that could protect the owner from the torment of cleaning dust between those plinths. Basically, the cover provided in the package is of little use. In addition to that, the upper plinth gets vibrations from it like from a satellite dish, as the joints of this cover are screwed to it. So I would rather dismantle it to be on the safe side. Anyway, this is an infrequent example of a turnkey solution. Usually simpler turntables come in a plug-and-play package, but here is a high-level product that is conceived and configured with a balanced design from start to finish at the factory. It's certainly a helping hand for those who aren't prepared to deal with the exhausting and delicate work of fine-tuning a turntable, which is usually done by ear and often involves going through a lot of swings and misses. For example, I set up the same orthophone in my system at my leisure for a week, because the sound wasn't perfect for me and there are a lot of variables in my turntable. Music Hall allows you for avoiding all of this. As for the setup, both of our turntables have sensitive low-output MC cartridges, so they require a quality phono stage. I used the legendary John Curl's amazing Parasound JC3 Junior phono stage, which is connected to a HIN6 integrated amp that is hooked up to the latest Klipsch Reference Premier speakers. So, what does a 3-tier Music Hall turntable sound like? If to disregard the coloration of the cartridges, then I found out this. Firstly, I must say that this multi-stage damping system works really awesome. The turntable is very quiet, and if the vinyl surface doesn't make noise, then you get the deadest pauses like on a digital source. Secondly, the mechanical system is really well balanced. In the sound of both turntables there is transparency in the entire audible spectrum. I didn't observe any special veil or vice versa, sharpness, excessively harsh sounding, nothing. You can expect a fairly balanced, rather neutral sound, but without excessive sterility, digital discreteness and sharpness at the same time, even on modern digitally recorded LPs. For example, the new Red Hot Chili Peppers album, unexpectedly analog and warm. As far as different cartridges are concerned, with the Goldring the bass is a bit dry, while the mids and highs are neutral but with good impact. The stage becomes a little wider with the orthophone. The lower half of the frequency spectrum is a little fatter and warmer. Orthophone delivers more subtle echoes and decays on this recording, but in comparison it lacks the energy that the British cartridge gives. Therefore, I would prefer to listen to such music on Goldring. But the Quantum Gate album performed by the German electronic band Tangerine seemed to me rather withered, less involving paired with a Goldring cartridge. I liked the presentation of the Danish cartridge better. This album, rich in details with the help of orthophone, sounds on this player like if it was recorded not in 2017, but in 1980. And this is much more impressive, of course. On the one hand, there is a feeling of liquid sound, a lack of discreteness, excessive sterility, which usually annoys us on CDs. Music Hall performs absolutely old school in this respect. You hear what vinyl gives you, even modern, recorded on computers. Listening to this album digitally and on this turntable are two absolutely different kinds of experience. At the same time, the high quality of its units does its job. You penetrate the very depth of the recording because the extremely sharp needle extracts a lot of subtleties and they could easily be lost if the turntable wasn't so paranoidly damped from everything. As for the really old records, I liked the sound of the 1981 Rush Exit Stage Left live album. Some people considered this recording to be their weakest live LP, but not me. I like what's going on there and how it's recorded. I have a 1981 Dutch pressing in my collection and it sounds really amazing. These records give you the feeling of being immersed in a concert. I mean, you dive to a specific point in space, right in front of the stage. As many people know, they deliberately reduced the level of the audience noise on this record so that the sound become more detailed and clear, and it worked out perfectly. You feel close to the musicians. And there is a great solo by Neil Peart on a YYZ song that's so open-ended here that you can almost feel the air moving around in his drums. And all of them are so clearly arranged in space that you can't believe that this isn't a multi-channel recording, just a wowzer. And as for the cartridges, there is a parity here. They are very close in terms of perception, but if to nitpick, then I liked the presentation of orthophone more. In my opinion, although it lacks the necessary aggression present in live performances, but which Goldring is able to deliver. Orthophone has a plumpness on the low frequencies that makes it sound warmer and subjectively gives me more listening comfort. All in all, mmf-9.3 turned out to be a turntable that doesn't color the sound by itself, and this is its big worth because it can reshape its character depending on which cartridge is installed on it. Yes, it's rather low-key for a cool player, and it's quite simple at first glance, but in fact, behind this simplicity is a very well thought out, efficient design in which everything is done in pursuit of maximum sound quality. Its obvious disadvantages are a strange felt mat that slips on the platter and sticks to the records, and this despite the fact that Music Hall has two models of original cork mats. We just used one on a black turntable. Why wouldn't they add something similar to the kit? And the black lacquer might seem boring, the bundled cover is a rather useless thing, and the bundled phono cable is a nonsense. But if you definitely need high quality sound, but you don't want to bother with fine-tuning and all those technical things that accompany the owner of any high-end turntable, but you want everything to be as easy with vinyl as, say, with a CD player, then mmf-9.3 is exactly the option that you can get out of the box, connect to a well-done setup, sit down and enjoy all the years to come.